What is more remarkable than the historical accounts of English in the Philippines is the fact that the non-native speakers' constant use of the transplanted language has given birth to a local variety, and that is known as the Philippine English. Good morning. Today I'm going to present the work of Dr. Alejandro entitled An Endocentric Approach to English Grammar Teaching. So to give you a quick backgrounder of this approach, I think it's good to ask this question. Why should we use endocentric approach in English grammar teaching? As we all know, we have existing and emerging varieties of English all over the world. We have Australian English, New Zealand English, Singaporean English, Indian English, and so on and so forth. And one of those varieties of English is our very own Philippine English. According to Schneider, these new Englishes undergo a certain phase or 5 phases before they become established and standard local variety of English. The question here now is, in what phase is Philippine English? Schneider situated the Philippine English in phase number 3, under nativization. However, in 2016, Borlongan argued that the Philippine English already moved forward to phase number 4, and that is endonormative stabilization. Okay? According to Borlongan, the Philippine English already met the parameters set by Schneider in the endonormative stabilization. So what are those parameters? First, post-independence and self-dependence. Second, membership in the newly founded nation that is territory-based. Third, acceptance of a local norm and positive attitude towards it. That's why we have acceptability tests and studies about the attitude of the Filipino speakers of English in the country. And then literary creativity in the new English. And lastly, we have stabilization, homogeneity, and codification of the new English. So for more details about that one, again, these parameters are already achieved by the Philippine English. So for more details about this topic, you may read the following articles, okay, that were published online. Okay, going back to our main point. Now that we know the phase where Philippine English is situated in, it's important to come up with an approach that is coherent with the current status of the Philippine English in our country. Okay? Now that language learners thrive in a classroom environment that is no longer monolingual and monocultural, language teachers are confronted by the complexities of teaching in multilingual contexts. And if the language taught is English, the questions may be raised are countless. These questions may include the following. Which variety or varieties of English must students learn and internalize? Is it the general American English or the Philippine English, whose norms or standards should be promoted? And how can English teachers be more pedagogically responsive in multilingual contexts like that we have in the Philippines or multilingual classroom milieus? Okay, so these are the following questions that we need to ponder on as Filipino ESL teachers. So to address those questions, Borlongan argued that from a linguistic and pedagogical point of view, there is a need to include both varieties of English in English language teaching in a more effective manner. Okay, and he called this one as the endocentric approach to English grammar instruction. So the basis of his argument here is the study that he conducted, okay, is the comprehensive study that he conducted in 2013, where the majority of the college English language teachers believed that they use both American and Philippine Englishes in the ELT classroom and outside its borders, and that they aspire to formally teach both varieties. Okay? A larger population of teachers now approve of not only one variety of English as a pedagogical model in Philippine schools, and not only one variety as a model for local usage, but a pluricentric variety. And those are the Philippine English and General American English. Unsurprisingly, this thinking and aspiration translate into their classroom practices. So to realize the endocentricity of grammar teaching, he proposed the following. First, making grammar instruction corpus driven, or making grammar teaching corpus driven. It is imperative for language practitioners and language learners to start using corpora, corpus tools, and corpus evidence as a starting point, not only for linguistic research, but also for the teaching and learning of the English language. Therefore, ESL practitioners should draw their attention to corpus-based and corpus-driven delivery of instruction. And there are available resources, there are available corpora online that the teachers can use to teach grammar to the students. Okay? The second one is designing Philippine English-based ELT syllabi. Here, the syllabi designers should take into account the harnessing of students' knowledge and understanding of the historical, social, and political context of the global expansion and the development of English and Englishes, and sharpen their critical awareness of the geographical and linguistic advancement of English. And through this curricular effort, students will be enticed to explore the variations across Englishes and the emergence of the new standard Englishes. They will also be able to understand the debates unfolding the standard language ideology and explore the internationalization and globalization of English. Aside from that is conducting pedagogical acceptability judgment test. Here, a university-wide or classroom-based survey of highly and close to highly pedagogically acceptable Philippine English grammatical variants needs to be conducted, no matter how tedious it is, prior to teaching specific linguistic forms, to note what both teachers and students use in spoken written discourse, what they formally welcome in this classroom, and what they believe to be correct and appropriate. That's why there's a need to conduct a pedagogical acceptability judgment test before teaching or introducing these Philippine English features to the ESL classroom. The results of the pedagogical judgment test may advise or caution language teachers and learners that there might be questions or controversies involving the use of certain Philippine English grammatical constructions. Next is featuring Philippine English grammar in ESL textbooks and work texts. There are some researchers who found out that there is a mismatch between textbook descriptions and real language use. And I believe that's also one common problem that we face here in our country. So what's the remedy? The teaching and learning of grammar tends to be endocentric if the local variety of English is substantially featured or represented as the norm if not a core norm, when internalization of grammatical rules in a form-focused ESL class is concerned. Okay? In other words, this Philippine English grammar must be featured in the textbooks that we produce here in our country. For what purpose? So that the students will be aware of these features. Not only the students, but also the teachers who are not yet that aware about the existence of the Philippine English in our country. Next is incorporating World English in textbooks and work texts. Textbook developers are usually endowed with the freedom to go beyond the requirements of educational institutions and the state. And because World Englishes have been regarded as a serious pedagogical agendum, incorporating lessons about the existence of the different varieties of English across the globe remains well advised. Okay? So aside from featuring the Philippine English grammar in ESL textbook, we can also incorporate the concept of world Englishes in textbooks and work texts. Okay? This will also help the students to develop their social-linguistic competence, especially when they are aware of the existence of other varieties of Englishes. And lastly, testing ESL learners on a variety of Englishes. Here, test developers need to consider the varieties of English against which students will be judged and allow them to select answers to grammar items that reflect their actual use of the language. To simply put, local language tests, okay, need to be variety sensitive. Okay, it also needs to consider the variety of English that we have, especially the Philippine English. Okay, so the endocentric approach to grammar teaching may be further enhanced considering other factors and pedagogical practices. Now let's proceed to the main point of this presentation, which is the endocentric approach to classroom practices. The first approach here, the first specific approach is to present grammar rules. In subjects or lessons that require reference to derivation and presentation of linguistic rules, the application of the endocentric approach to English grammar teaching is of a paramount value. An example is this one, okay? When prepositional phrase, for example, result in, based on, and cope with, and the use of articles are the focus of the lesson, and sentences in which these structures occur are introduced, it is worthy to overtly mention that in the local variety of English, which is Philippine English, the collocate results, the collocates result to, based from, and cope up with, and also the phrase majority are evident. Okay, the symbol there means that the determiner phrase is null. I'm sorry, it's not determiner phrase, but it's the determiner. The determiner a is not overt, okay, which is a common feature of Philippine English in our country. Okay, so here we can say that these phrases, these features of Philippine Englishes of Philippine English are acceptable and evident. Okay, next is this one. Okay. I want you to identify which between these two sentences is a structure of an American English and a structure of the Philippine English. Okay. You may type in your answer in the chat box. Is sentence A feature of American or a Philippine English? Again, is sentence A feature of American or Philippine English? Please type in your answer. Okay. What about sentence letter B? Is it a feature of American or Philippine English? Let's see what's your answer. Or let's see if you can identify the features of the different varieties of English in the country. Okay, so to explain that, in teaching perfect tenses like had eaten, okay, the presentation of the conventional rules that govern the use of the perfect tenses and their counterparts in Philippine English is deemed necessary, just like this example. So when you present the grammar rules, if this is your topic, you may highlight the following. For example, number one, sentence A adheres to the exogenous norm, which is the general American English. So your answer is correct. Sentence A is a feature of general American English, while sentence B adheres to the local norm Philippine English, and this is important, it is pedagogically acceptable. How do we know if it is pedagogically acceptable? If we run a pedagogical acceptability judgment test. Okay? So the sentence B is acceptable. Therefore, we don't mark this as an error when the students write this kind of sentence. Okay. Next, it is okay. The next approach is designing grammar tests. If a test If a test were to assess a student's proficiency in the English grammar, traditionally, an item similar to this example on the slide would be given. For example, the instruction is to cross out the section of the sentence that contains an error, write NE if there is no error. So I want you to read the sentence and identify the error if there's an error. And if there's no error, just simply write NE in the chat box. I'll give you 20 seconds to answer. Okay, let's see. If the phrase majority of Filipinos, or if the word majority is not selected and the test taker believes that there's no error in the sentence, a student's answer will most likely be considered incorrect. In general American English, the phrase majority is incorrect. Why? It should have the overt determiner a. Okay, it must be a majority of Filipinos, should not be dealing with bad, etc. Okay? But that particular phrase is actually a feature of Philippine English, and that is acceptable. Okay? A student might judge majority of Filipinos correct and acceptable, since in the Philippines, the expression majority without the determiner a is more commonly used by the educated circle of Filipinos, and an expression considered to be feature of Philippine English. Okay, so I hope that one is clear. Another example. Okay, this time I want you to choose the correct answer. Complete the dialogue between these two people by choosing the correct answer. Is it A, B, C, or D? When is Barack Obama's birthday? I don't know blank. Is it A, when is Barack Obama's birthday? B, when his birthday is? C, if he has a birthday? D, when is his birthday? What's your answer? Please type your answer in the chat box. Okay. In the case of this item, teachers in using endocentric approach may allow test takers to choose either A, B, or the for an answer. Why? Because embedded questions in Philippine English seem to have a unique placement. Again, embedded questions in Philippine English seem to have a unique placement. That's why these answers are considered correct if we follow the endocentric approach. If teachers do not, the the test students are required to complete will negate the existence of a local variety of English. Okay? So that's the second approach. Let's proceed to the composition writing. In composition writing, in which grammar and mechanics are a usual criterion, students' papers may not be marked red and full of corrections if they use the following: regards to, fill up, results, a result to, and then base from. Okay, but if you strictly adhere to the general American English, you will mark them as wrong, right? The teacher need not to cross out, okay? Again, the teacher need not to cross out the following phrases and perpetually insist that they must be placed with regard to, fill out, result in, and based on. Okay? Why? Because since we adhere to endocentric approach and we value both varieties of English, therefore we can allow our students to use these two varieties of English in the country. Okay? Regardless of the variants that they will use, it is considered correct if it is either Philippine English or General American English. So it is also important to explicitly state prior to the writing stage that students are given the liberty to use both General American English and Philippine English varieties in writing paragraphs or compositions. In other words, through the endocentric approach, composition writing courses are also made world English or variety sensitive. Again, it is sensitive to the different varieties in a particular country. Last is assessing speaking proficiency. In assessing students' oral proficiency, for instance, in speech or oral communication classes, in which accuracy is also given premium, the use of endocentric approach is also of paramount significance. So when using a speech assessment rubric, for example, varieties of English may be accommodated by modifying the criterion for accuracy in such a way that students will not be penalized through score reduction if acceptable features of Philippine English are used in their speech. For example, if they are to deliver an informative speech and then you notice that the students use the phrase based from, you don't mark it as wrong. Okay, if we are talking about accuracy. Why? Because of this endocentric approach, especially if we follow the endocentric approach to English grammar instruction. Ayan. So in conclusion, the approach to grammar teaching used here is endocentric since both English teachers and students shift their linguistic attention and pedagogical interest to the use of JAE or General American English and Educated Philippine English. This variety is acceptable. This must be acceptable as their points of reference in teaching and learning the English grammar. Lastly, it is crucial that ESL approaches match the social linguistic realities that surround the ESL learners. That's why we are advocating the use of endocentric approach because the Philippine English is situated now in phase number 4 under endonormative stabilization. Doing so will actually match our approaches inside the class and the social linguistic realities that surround our learners. So to end this, I'd like to give credit to the author of this article, who is no other than Dr. Alejandro S. Bernardo. He's currently the Vice Dean of the UST Faculty of Arts in UST. He is also an associate editor of the AGELS Journal. He's also the president of the Linguistic Society of the Philippines, which I'm inviting you to join and be member of. And then he also took his Doctor of Philosophy major in English Studies at the University of Santo Tomas in Manila. So if you want to read the full copy of the article, you may click the link here, and then I advise you to read especially the last part of the article, because Dr. Bernardo presents a sample lesson plan where a sample lesson plan for teaching an English grammar using the endocentric approach. Once again, my name is King and thank you for listening. God bless everyone. Bye bye.